What's up? This is Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff. On today's show, the Raiders had an incredible week and are closing in on the #1 pick in the NFL draft. The Golden Knights had an incredibly fun game against the NHL's best team, and Adam Candee joins the show as the Raiders and Giants played in our favorite thing, a tank bowl. If you want to sponsor the show, you can contact me at TechnicallyCorrectVegas@gmail.com. I will appreciate any sponsorship from a business. If you're just a fan and want to sponsor it, absolutely let me know. Hopefully, we'll have a Patreon up and running soon, but TechnicallyCorrectVegas@gmail.com is where you can get in touch with me right now. Anything you want to do, any sponsorship, any ideas, just let me know. We can make something fun happen. We can do some fun things. You've got more power than you actually believe. Here we go. The Raiders lost to the Giants 34-10. What a beautiful tank job it was. Geno Smith threw 2 more interceptions, both when the Raiders were across midfield in danger of scoring. Got sacked 3 more times because the offensive line was brutal again. Raiders only ran for 60 yards on 20 carries. The defense, meanwhile, decided, let's give up 155 rushing yards. Let's allow Jackson Dart to have his highest completion percentage of the year. And just when the Raiders showed some life, that they might be able to get back into the game, they score a touchdown. The Raiders allow a kickoff return for a touchdown to put the game back out of reach. Just a complete performance, a perfect job in week 17 to jump into the #1 pick for the NFL draft. Now, there's still 1 week left. The Raiders could still beat the Chiefs and fall out of the #1 pick. It looks like the absolute furthest they could fall is 3 right now, but they are in control of the #1 pick going into the final week of the season because of what was a perfect week. And I'm going to be honest, I am genuinely impressed with what the Raiders did this week. I have been saying for years the Raiders need to actually tank and rebuild. They need to take rebuilding seriously because they aren't close to winning. And they haven't been for a very, very long time. They've never been this bad since they've moved to Vegas, but they have not ever been a Super Bowl contender. There's been 1 playoff appearance, and it was get in the final weekend of the season, lose in the first round to Cincinnati. That team wasn't terrible, but they also weren't going to be going anywhere playoff-wise deep into the playoffs. So they've basically been a non-contender, a non-competitor since they've been in Vegas, but yet they've never decided, hey, let's go for a rebuild. Let's try to get really good 2 or 3 years from now. Instead, it's always been, how can we win 9 games? How can we be 500? Can we squeeze into the playoffs as the last team? That's been all their goal for the entire time they've been in Vegas has been that. But this week was different. They put their 2 best players on IR in Brock Bowers and Max Crosby. They might have pissed Crosby off in the process. And then they played horrendously in that game. Even the fans were cheering for Raiders' bad plays. Geno Smith throws a pick and Raiders fans are cheering. Everyone got it. And I am impressed. I'm shocked that the Raiders actually did this because I didn't think they had it in them. I didn't think Mark Davis, as an owner, had it in him to allow his franchise to do this. It's not something that he wants to do. It's not something that he is authorized, and yet they did it. I didn't think Pete Carroll as a coach would be able to do this, would be able to say, we're sitting down Brock Bowers and Max Crosby. Because these are 2 guys that, listen, if the Raiders had 11 wins, they're probably playing this weekend, right? I didn't think Pete Carroll had that in him. He showed us for 13, 14 weeks that he didn't even want to play guys that were rookies outside of Ashton Genty. I didn't think they had it in them, and they showed us that they did. And listen, I've been very critical of the Raiders and the decision makers and what they've done. The offseason was a complete disaster. Basically, every choice they made in the offseason was wrong across the board, right? And I've been very critical of Tom Brady because apparently he's got the biggest voice, but he's not in the building, whatever. You know what I want to know? Who actually pushed for this full tank job? Who pushed for we're putting Crosby and Bowers on IR? Because that person deserves so much credit for giving the Raiders direction. Was it Tom Brady? Did Tom Brady say, hey, sit Crosby, sit Bowers, like we need to get the number one pick so we can draft a quarterback? Was it John Spytek, a guy who is the general manager of this team, but we never really hear about, right? Was it actually Pete Carroll? Right? Pete Carroll's the one that has to talk to the media about it. Did Pete Carroll do this? Like, I genuinely want to know because they deserve credit. As much as I've yelled and much as I've blamed them for how poorly things have gone, they deserve credit for this because it's something that Mark Davis wasn't willing to do, and they did it. They actually did it, and now they're in position to get the number one pick in the draft, something that they haven't had in a long time, and give their franchise hope. Hope that they get the right quarterback, that they get a franchise quarterback that can lead them to actual Super Bowl contention. It's probably foolish to say lead them to an actual Super Bowl because it's very hard to win a Super Bowl in the NFL. But if the Raiders can actually have some hope that a quarterback can take them close to the Super Bowl, if not win it, that's all. That's what you want. As an organization, that's what they need right now. And here's the thing, even if they don't take a quarterback, even if they're like, we don't really like Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore that much, and they're able to trade down and get more assets, fantastic, right? Like, look at what the Bears did to trade out of the number one pick to give it to the Panthers for Bryce Young. They got more picks from the Panthers. They ended up taking that to get Caleb Williams the next year. Like, that's what the Raiders could do as well, right? Like, they have the opportunity to do one of two huge things for turning the franchise around: get the quarterback or get multiple first-round picks to help build this team up. I'm impressed. I genuinely, like, this is what I've been wanting the Raiders to do, and they finally did it. They committed to it for the whole week, top to bottom. Even the fans were on board with it. Now, I got this tweet from Phil on Twitter on Sunday, and I've seen this before, but Phil said, is it the right call to draft a quarterback at number one? Last Super Bowl one was the New York Giants in 2012. And what Phil means is the last Super Bowl won by a team who drafted that quarterback number one overall was the Giants with Eli Manning in 2012. Phil said, seems like drafting great O-line and D-line first and then getting the quarterback mid-first in a few years is the right way. In reality, this is bad logic. The reason drafting a quarterback first overall doesn't lead to winning the Super Bowl very often isn't because they drafted a quarterback. It's because those teams suck. Like, that's the reality of it. If you're picking first overall, you're as bad as this Raiders team. And this Raiders team is not one good quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl. Like, let's be very clear. When I talk about hope with Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore, it's not about next year. It is the Raiders are going to have to hit on 2, probably 3 off seasons in a row, plus the quarterback, for them to be a Super Bowl contender. So it's not a Fernando Mendoza fixes everything type of situation. But because of Phil's tweet, I went back to look this up. Players drafted first overall that won a Super Bowl. If we go back to 1980, there's been one offensive lineman who was drafted first overall who won a Super Bowl, and it's Eric Fisher with the Kansas City Chiefs. There has been one defensive lineman that was drafted first overall that won a Super Bowl, and it was Russell Maryland with the Cowboys. He got drafted in 1991. That's how long it's been since a D lineman drafted first overall won a Super Bowl, period. There's been one wide receiver. It was Keyshawn Johnson. He did not win it with the team that drafted him. He won it with Tampa Bay, not the Jets. So he won one, just not with the team that drafted him. For quarterbacks, Matthew Stafford, drafted first overall, won a Super Bowl. Granted, with a different team than drafted him. Eli Manning, drafted first overall, won a Super Bowl with the Giants. Peyton Manning, drafted first overall, won a Super Bowl with the team that drafted him and a different team. Drew Bledsoe, drafted first overall, won a Super Bowl. Technically, that was the year Tom Brady took the job from him, so he was not the quarterback in the Super Bowl, but did win one. Troy Aikman, drafted first overall, won a Super Bowl with the Cowboys. John Elway, drafted first overall with the Baltimore Colts, but won one with Denver. So, since 1980, only 9 players drafted first overall have won a Super Bowl. It's pretty rare at every position for that to happen. And 6 of those 9 have been quarterbacks. It is more than double every other position in the sport. And even if you say, well, it's only matters for the team that drafts him in this conversation, right? Like, what do the Raiders care if they draft Fernando Mendoza first and in 10 years he wins a Super Bowl with a different team? Fair. Even if you do that, it's 3 quarterbacks that have won one with the team that drafted them, right? And that doesn't include Bledsoe, by the way. That's Manning, and Aikman. And it's 2 other positions, any other position, that has won it with the team that drafted him. So yes, it's rare to draft a quarterback first overall and then go on and win the Super Bowl. But it's rare to be drafting first overall and then win a Super Bowl in the near future, no matter what player you draft, because if you're drafting first, you're bad. You're really bad, and you need more than one player. The fact is, quarterback is the most important position. It is the top position in the sport. It is the most likely position that if you get right, it will help your team turn around. That's the reality of it. So yes, you can look back and say, oh, all these quarterbacks taken first overall, they haven't won anything. They don't go to the Super Bowl. Why would we want to do that? You can say that about any position. And maybe that's an argument to trade out a number 1, but that doesn't change how bad the Raiders were this season. So yes, drafting a quarterback first overall is the best thing to do when you need a quarterback. Now, I do want to talk about the Max Crosby situation. I know it happened before the game and everything, but fascinating. He apparently gets told on Friday that he would not be playing in this game against the Giants. He ultimately gets put on IR and he's done for the season. But he gets told on Friday he's not playing. He wanted to play. And according to Jay Glazer, he left the facility because he was angry. Pete Carroll confirmed that he left the facility, but Pete Carroll has tried to say, oh, it's because he's a competitor and blah, blah, blah. Left the facility unhappy. Raiders put him on IR, say he needs surgery. Their attempt to be like, hey, we're not tanking. Hey, don't say that. He's really injured, which he is. He's got a knee injury. It's a legitimate injury, but it's pretty obvious it's a situation where if the Raiders had 11 wins, he'd be playing, but they have 2 wins, so he's not playing. But the Raiders did the smart thing. Bowers, Crosby, both of them sit. I'm still surprised they did it, but the Raiders did the right thing. The question I have is, what does this mean for Max Crosby's future? Has he played his last game as a Raider? Because he has for the longest time talked about wanting to stay with the Raiders. He wants to win with the Raiders. And Mark Davis, as the owner, has plenty of times mentioned, I'm not trading Max Crosby. Only people outside the organization bring up the idea of trading him. Like that idea of trading him, even though I think they should have done it multiple years ago, that doesn't exist for this franchise and for this player. But is this the decision where Crosby finally says, okay, I want out? Is this the one where he finally says, no, I don't want to do it here anymore? Because I think Crosby wants to do it with the Raiders because he thinks it's more noble. He has in the past talked about LeBron James taking the easy way out in the NBA and how Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, who he has tattooed on his stomach, did it the right way. And they won with the team that drafted them. Never mind that Kobe Bryant refused to play with the team that actually was going to draft him in Charlotte, but they did it with the team that drafted him. That was the right way. He has talked about that before as a critique of LeBron James. Does he finally change his mind and say, oh, I'd rather win with a second team than just keep losing with the first team? And did he just get the, I'll say, mental ammunition to convince himself that it's okay for him to go to a different team because this organization just made him sit out? He's the ultimate competitor. He wants to play to win, regardless of a draft pick. He doesn't care about that. Did the Raiders just make a decision where he can say, well, they're losers, They have a losing culture. They cared more about a draft pick than they did winning a game. So of course I had to get out of there because that doesn't fit who I am as a player. I can see that easily as an internal excuse to do something that he has not wanted to do. And that might be the case because here's the reality. If you're Max Crosby, he's going to be 29 years old when next season starts. 29, which means what? Max Crosby doesn't have that many years left of being one of the best defensive ends in football, right? If Max Crosby is awesome at 32, it'll be incredibly impressive, right? Crosby probably has a couple of seasons left where he's like, top 5 defensive end or however you want to rank them, but at the very top of those lists. And if he wants to win a Super Bowl while at the peak of his powers, he's not going to do it in Vegas. They're not going to do this next year. They're probably not going to do it the following year. So if he wants to do it, he's got to get the hell out, right? 7-year career. Crosby's played in 1 playoff game. He had 5 different head coaches. All he has seen here is losing and dysfunction. And the one time that I think they've done something that's functionable is what pissed him off and made him lose or leave the facility, right? So I think it's a genuine question at this point. Did the choice they made, is that going to cause them to lose Max Crosby at the end of the day? Is he finally going to say, I want out, I demand a trade, let's go somewhere else? That could happen because of this. And I think it'll be a good thing. Like at the end of the day, I think they should be trading Max Crosby. He's going to be 29. His timeline of when he's going to be a great player does not match what the Raiders' timeline is to be contenders. And if you can trade Crosby, I don't know if they'll get 2 firsts for him. I honestly think that might have passed. That should have been done last offseason, maybe during the trade deadline or the offseason before that, right? That would have been the time to cash in. Now you might not get 2 firsts, but even if you can just get 1 first and we'll just say a second, right? You should be doing that because those are the players who will be in their prime when you're ready to win. You've got to hit on those picks, right? You probably aren't drafting a player as good as Max Crosby, but you're probably going to, if you hit on a pick, you're probably going to have a player 3 years from now who's more valuable than Crosby is 3 years from now, because that player will be on a rookie contract. And if you draft a good player, will be good, while Crosby will still probably be good, but on the decline and will be making $40 million a year. If you draft well, it will 100% line up with your timeline and be more valuable. If they can trade Crosby and get a first and a second, 2 firsts, hell, a first and a third, whatever, they should be trying to do it. That is what's going to give them the most value for their timeline. That's what's important here. So we'll see what happens with Crosby, but I thought this was an incredible week for the Raiders, one that actually makes me think they could do something as a competent organization. They got to have a good offseason, and they had a terrible one this last offseason, so maybe not. But there's actually some reason to believe that the key here, they understand how bad they are, and they have not understood that for years. But they finally showed us that they understand how bad they are, and that is step 1 to not being bad anymore. Now, before we get to Bischoff's Briefs, my wife and I said goodbye to our 17-year-old Shih Tzu, Ruby, over the weekend. She predated our relationship. She was actually my wife's family's dog. And then when my wife and I moved back to Vegas, and then we moved in our own place, we took her. 17 years old, incredible. But a shout out to a few of my friends who bought a sponsorship on the show in honor of Ruby. The Golden Knights lost to the Colorado Avalanche on Saturday in a shootout. Obviously, they went past regulation, but they played to a 5-5 tie through regulation and overtime and then went to a shootout. And I am curious. They play this game against Colorado. Is the takeaway, what takeaway is more important to you? That they played the best team in the NHL without Jack Eichel, Shea Theodore, and William Karlsson, and they got to a shootout. That like they didn't trail in this game. Technically, you trail after you lose in the shootout, but they never trailed in this game. It's a loser point, but they got a point against the best team in the league without 3 of their best players. Or is the better takeaway. They led 2-0 and blew it. They led 4-2 and blew it. They led 5-4 late in the third and blew it, right? This is a game where, based on the score, the Golden Knights should not have lost at any point. They should have put this one away. Personally, I kind of walked away from that a little more optimistic. Colorado's scoring was expected, right? Given the lineup the Golden Knights put out there and what Colorado is this year, them scoring is expected. But the Golden Knights put up 5 with that depleted roster. We're talking about Alex Holtz and Ben Hutton and Colton Sissons, right? Depth guys are scoring goals, right? And that's was the reason they lost in the playoffs last year. They couldn't score goals. Well, if they can get goals from those guys in a playoff run, then the Golden Knights are probably going to score enough goals to win the Stanley Cup. So I took that as a positive. And the overall numbers in this game, there's some crazy ones, right? Colorado had 50 scoring chances. They had 100 shot attempts, which is the most the Golden Knights have ever allowed. And like, I'll get to the own goals in just a second, but based on the quantity and the quality of shots and chances, the Golden Knights were lucky to be in that game. I know they led the entire time, but based on the amount of everything, the Golden Knights were kind of lucky to be in that game. There were plenty of stretches where Colorado was dominant, but you get that depth scoring. And by the way, good goals too, right? They scored through transition or through great passing. Like, there were some really good goals in that game, and you sort of matched Colorado in that sense. And to be fair, Colorado had to match the Golden Knights, actually. That should be a good sign for getting goals against teams that are not Colorado. Now, again, is it a one-game blip where you get Sissons and Hutton and Howden and Holtz and everybody? Maybe, probably at the end of the day, but like, if they can get something like that, if you can get a goal a game from those types of players, that's going to mean a lot to where this team gets goals from. By the way, especially with Eichel and Theodore and Karlsson out. But even when those guys are back, you're going to need some of that depth scoring, and we saw it against the NHL's best team in Colorado. Now, the own goals. Oh, I love this. The NHL needs to change its scoring. We need own goals. It's the accurate way to reflect things, and there's not been a better game than this one, right? The first 2 Colorado goals are own goals, right? Samuel Girard should not have a goal for a pass that Jeremy Lauzon deflected past his own goalie, and then Marty Necas should not have a goal for a pass that deflected off of Caden Korzak and into the net. Neither one of those players were shooting, and yet they get goals for it. Those should not be goals for those 2 Colorado players. Those should be recorded as own goals. That is what factually happened. Lauzon and Korzak scored those goals. That's what it should go down as. Own goal Lauzon, own goal Korzak. Sorry. Important note. The 3rd Colorado goal, Martin Necas scored, and as he took a shot, Caden Korzak tried to block it with his stick and did have a deflection on it. Dave Gosher, the Golden Knights play-by-play guy, said multiple times that it was an own goal. No. That is not an own goal. That should count as a Marty Necas goal. When I am finally in charge of scoring in the NHL, that one will count. Because here's the key. If a player shoots and the puck is going on net, takes a deflection, that still counts as a goal for the player that shot. That is not an own goal. Own goals are only when any defensive player, the goalie or the skaters, anybody that's defending, is only when those players deflect a puck that is not going on net, a pass or a shot, right? Because, and I tell you to look at it this way. When a player shoots or passes, right, imagine you removed all of the defensive players, goalie, skaters, everybody defending, if they were all gone. Would the puck go in? If the answer is yes, then it is not an own goal because those defensive players had to do something to stop the puck. And sure, it might have deflected off of them and ended up, but they had to do something. If they disappeared, it would have still gone in. Whereas if you remove them all and the puck's never going to go in the net because it was a pass across the crease or something, then that counts as an own goal because all those defensive players had to do was get out of the way. That's what an own goal is. So the first 2 Colorado goals are definite own goals. The third one, no. Guy takes a shot that's going on net and it just gets deflected on the way. That is not an own goal. That's just unfortunate, but that does not count as an own goal. Last thing on the Golden Knights, I lied. Second to last thing on the Golden Knights, they're so bad in shootouts. They have taken 21 shot attempts in shootouts this season. They've only scored 4 of them. which is not the worst in the league because some teams don't actually go to very many shootouts, so they're like 0 for 3 on the year. But they've only scored on 4 of 21, and they were 1 of 4 on Saturday. And the part that sticks out to me that's crazy, sometimes they don't even get shots on net. Like in this one, Mitch Marner scored, good move. He's heroic because he scored. He's the only one that can do it, I guess. But Pavel Dorofeyev misses the net. Alexander Holtz misses the net. Riley Smith was the other guy that shot, and he did get a shot on goal, but he lost control of the puck and had to just weakly reach out and just try to tap it, and it wasn't real. That wasn't a real shot. They had 4 shot attempts in this shootout, and only one of them was even a competent shot. Only one of them required a goalie to do something, and he did it. Marner scored. The other 3, 2 of them, you didn't even need the goalie. They missed the net, and the other one was just, don't fall down as the goalie, and you're going to stop Riley Smith's pathetic chance. They're so bad. They're so bad at this. It's crazy how bad they are. Now the last thing on the Golden Knights, they're back in action tonight. They play the Minnesota Wild. They're at home. We get to see Quinn Hughes. Back-to-back, here's the thing that's kind of annoying. Back-to-back fun matchups against some of the best teams in the West, right? But the Golden Knights don't have Eichel and Theodore and Carlson. It's annoying. So I kind of hate that part of it. The Colorado game was incredibly fun, but you'd like to watch these games and be like, oh, this could be the Western Conference final matchup, and what does this look like? But with no Eichel and Theodore and Carlson, I guess those guys could not be in it, and the Golden Knights probably they're not making the conference final without them. But I don't know. It just kind of takes away from what should be a really, really fun time. Also, Bruce Cassidy gave an update on Eichel on Sunday, not playing against Minnesota. Not ruled out for any more games after that, but apparently might not go on the road trip they're coming up on. So really a non-update other than not playing tonight. He's not playing tonight. He's not ruled out for the future, though. But we don't know. He probably won't travel with us. What does that mean? When is Eichel? Day to day, we're past day to day. We're about to hit week to week with Eichel, and this is how the Golden Knights handle injuries. Now, UNLV plays La Sierra tonight. Okay. La Sierra is an NAIA school, right? This is, by the way, the last non-conference game of the season. NAIA school. They lost to CSUN by 35 right before Christmas, and the other Division I team they played is UC Riverside, who they lost to by 41 back in November. This should not be a competitive game, but I've got a reason to be excited. La Sierra has a player that is 7'3". Jasper Reynalda is 7'3" and playing in the NAIA, and he has played the most minutes on this team. He averages 16 points and 12 rebounds, but the rest of his stats are what's great. He's played 12 games, most minutes on the team. He has committed 16 fouls. 16! Kamani Hamilton's going to commit that in this game somehow. 16 fouls in 12 games. Again, most minutes on the team, 5 assists. He has the 8th most assists on a team where he's played the most minutes. He's also blocked 26 shots. His teammates have blocked another 15. Their opponents have only blocked 28. So he is responsible for 38% of all blocked shots in La Sierra games. And my favorite stat for you from this 7'3" center, Jasper Reynalda of La Sierra, he is shooting 35% from the free throw line, not from 3. God, he'd be Division I if he was shooting 35% from 3. 35% from the free throw line. That is unbelievable. And I am actually excited because UNLV fouls a lot. Specifically, UNLV's bigs foul a lot. I hope he shoots 20 free throws. Normally, I go to a basketball game or watch one and think, oh, God, I hope they never shoot free throw. It's the worst part of the game. Dear God, let this kid shoot 20 free throws. I mean, he's going to make 4 of them? Good God, 35% is horrendous. So I want to see it. I have some excitement for this game. A game that UNLV, even bad UNLV, should win by 30. I actually want to see the 7'3" guy shoot a whole bunch of free throws and, see how competent he actually is. Last thing in Bischoff's Briefs. The A's, the soon-to-be Las Vegas A's, they signed Tyler Soderstrom to a 7-year contract extension worth $86 million. The A's spent a little bit of money, but Tyler Soderstrom is 24 years old, Last year was his third year in Major League Baseball, but it was his first full season. He had played roughly the equivalent of one full season through the first 2 years. But last year, first full season, he had an OPS plus of 126. That means he was 26% better than the average hitter in baseball. That's very good. Primarily played left field last year, a little bit of first base. But here's the interesting part on this. Tyler Soderstrom was not going to be a free agent for another 4 years. We have seen the A's often in the past. You get 6 years generally before a player hits free agency. The A's have loved to trade guys away before they get to that 6th year so that they get, 5 years of cheap play, and then they trade him and get some assets back, right? They don't want to pay these guys. But they gave Soderstrom an extension. But here's the key. Because he wasn't going to hit free agent for another 4 years, what it means is that Tyler Soderstrom was not going to make any money for the next 4 years, right? This season would have been his last year before arbitration, and he was going to make the league minimum, which is under $1 million. And then he would have gone into arbitration. He would have had 3 years of arbitration, and his salary would have been bigger, but not big, right? For example, Tyler Soderstrom and Ernie Clement both had 4.3 wins above replacement this season. Clement is projected to get just over $4 million in arbitration this offseason. So this is bad math, right? But you can reasonably guess that Soderstrom could have made about $16 million over the next 4 years had he not signed this contract. So instead, the A's are going to pay him $48 million over the next 4 seasons. So the A's are paying him $32 million, roughly, more than he probably would have made over these next 4 seasons. That's a huge raise for Tyler Soderstrom in that regard. But Tyler Soderstrom, had he not signed this extension, would have hit free agency after those 4 years and then could have signed a massive deal, whatever the open market was. Instead, and this is what the A's are banking on, they get him for 3 additional years, and they're hoping that he's just as good as he was, or probably a little better even, this past season. Because if Tyler Soderstrom hits free agency as a 27-year-old who's got an OPS plus of 130 over the last 5 years, he's going to get a huge contract, right? He's going to get a contract 4 years from now. It'll be even bigger, but he's going to get a contract paying him $20, $30, $40 million a year, whatever that ends up being. Instead, for those 3 years, the A's are going to be paying him $12 million a year. So the gamble the A's basically took, and the gamble all teams take when they sign a guy to an extension well before their free agent year is coming up, is that the guy's going to stay that good for that long. And if he does, the A's are going to get a steal out of this. If he doesn't, and listen, guys have one good year and regress, right? It happens, absolutely happens. So it's no guarantee Soderstrom's going to stay good. But if he doesn't, then Soderstrom's going to have made out well because he's going to make $88 million instead of, or 86, I should say, instead of the 16 or so. And he's going to make a lot more money than he would have. So the player gets some security. The team's hoping that the player made a bad deal and they have him for cheap for 7 years as opposed to having to pay him as a free agent or just lose him after 4 years. But the A's, again, spending a little bit of money. It's not like they went out and signed a big-time free agent, but spending money in a way they normally haven't in the past and locking up a player that had a really good season for the next 7 years. We'll see how good Tyler Soderstrom actually is. But that is it for Bischoff's Briefs. The Raiders played the Giants with the first overall pick on the line. So obviously, Adam Candee, both a Giants fan and a fan of tanking, had to be here. Hello, Adam. Thank you for coming on Technically Correct.
It's been a while since I was on Technically Correct, Tyler. A couple of iterations ago, and I'm glad we're back in a safe space here.
All right. So first off, did you want the Giants to lose the game?
Of course I wanted the Giants to lose the game. They're already 2-13. There's nothing that I'm watching this game for other than to see, can this organization get its act together top to bottom for one day? And the answer was no.
Were you actively cheering for Raiders play? There weren't many of them, but were you actively cheering for Raiders plays? Because one of the funniest things that I saw on Twitter was Raiders fans in Allegiant Stadium cheering when Geno Smith threw an interception. Like, were you actively cheering for Raiders first downs?
I honestly didn't get the opportunity because the Giants went up a couple of scores very quickly in this game, and it became apparent that this is a better Giants team than the Raiders. Like, the part you have to accept going into it, if you're a fan of either of these teams, is that someone has to win. Yeah, you could say what there's a tie, but someone probably had to win this game by intent or not. I don't know, but the Giants are a team that has been more competitive than the Raiders throughout the year. And then the Raiders decided to sit their two all pros prior to the game. And so you kind of knew coming in that this was the more likely outcome.
I enjoyed the graphic during the game showing the Pro Bowlers. One, because there were only 3 from these two teams combined, which I think is the fewest of any game that showed that graphic this weekend. And 2, the 2 for the Raiders just not playing. Crosby apparently wasn't even in the building on Sunday. Phenomenal work to tank there. Before we get into the actual Raiders and Giants here, I want to ask you this because I love tanking. I think if, as an organization, you are not anywhere close to winning a championship, you should be doing some form of tanking, some form of what helps us in 2028 or 9 or whatever year you want to target. What I have a problem with is fans that are so anti-tanking, and I can't figure out why. Like, as a Raiders or a Giants fan today, I get it might be hard to, like, I want to cheer for Jackson Dart touchdowns instead of like, I get that it might be hard to actually do it, but I just don't get why there are people who are like, you play to win the games, you don't play to lose, you can't do that, it's bad culture. Like, the team's 2-13. The culture's clearly not working. I don't get why there are so many people who are like, you can't play to lose, you can't tank, like that's not what you should do.
I could give you a number of theories on this. My most popular one with my own brain is that there are only 17 of these every year, right? It's 17 out of 365 days. And people just want to feel good for a little while. They just want to feel like that when they go to work on Monday, they have a little bit of bragging rights. They can talk to people about their team that did well. My kind of second theory is that there's just a lot of leftover jocks who never got past the idea of their high school coach telling them, you're going to go out there, you're going to win this. I don't care if we're 0-7. Like, I think there are some people out there like that. I think there are more people who just want to enjoy their Sunday. And, you know, when your team is 2-13, you haven't got to enjoy a lot of Sundays. If you have a little foresight, like I think you do, when it comes to the idea of tanking, well, you can look forward to the draft. You don't have to be looking years out to enjoy tanking at this point. All you have to be doing is looking to April when you have a team that, like the Raiders, does not have a long-term answer at quarterback. I don't care if you like Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore, Lenore Sellers. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you like. There is hope out there in April. And so you can look at today and next week and say, let's tank over these last 2 weeks, given where we are.
And that's actually a great point because having the number 1 pick is going to be fun. Like, even if Mendoza's bad, having that pick is incredibly fun. And granted, the Raiders, I think the lowest they can technically fall now is 3, but they're almost certainly locked into 2. Even if they win, it's going to be fun to have 2 or 3, but it's just, I don't know. It's the Raiders having the first pick is going to be more fun than pretty much any game they play during the season. Like, yes, they beat the Patriots in week 1 and it was, oh wow, Pete Carroll, maybe he will win 10 games. But outside of that, having the number 1 pick is going to actually be fun going into that. And then for at least one off season, you're going to hope that Fernando Mendoza actually can be the savior of the franchise. Maybe after 3 games, you're like, this guy sucks and we're screwed again, but at least for a few months, there'll be some hope there. So I want to ask you this about quarterbacks before we get to the Raiders side of this. How do you feel about Jackson Dart? Like, are you do not draft a quarterback, let him be the starter for a year again, 2 years? Like, how do you feel about Jackson Dart?
I think there's enough there with Jackson Dart that the Giants should not be drafting a quarterback this year. And that feels weird to say because I wasn't 100% sold on the trade up for Jackson Dart, which, let's separate that out from the player itself. I don't think getting a third-round pick to move up into the first round again is a great idea. But Jackson Dart has shown you enough this year that you want to say, okay, if we start to fix some of these skill position problems, if we give him a healthy Malik Neighbors for a full season, if we actually shore up the interior of this offensive line, then yeah, let's see what he can do, because he had this team winning multiple games in the fourth quarter that their defense conspired to lose. You would be looking at this Giants season a whole lot differently just for a couple things going one way or the other. One is the game against Denver, which kind of solidified the narrative that this is a choking team that doesn't have the parts and they are not going to make any noise this year. The second thing is Brian Daboll trying to save his job by repeatedly running Jackson Dart into brick walls over and over again to give him 2 and 3 concussions in a single season. The only reason the narrative switched on Jackson Dart is because of the concussions. And now people are saying, well, does his style work? We haven't even seen his style yet. We've seen Brian Daboll trying to save his job by going out there and using the best option he had, which is not a sustainable long-term option in the National Football League, whether you're Lamar Jackson or Jackson Dart.
So if Dart's going to be the guy for at least the next year, what are the Giants drafting if they're picking second? Like if they're not looking at Moore, Mendoza, are they just drafting offensive linemen? Is that really what it should be? Or I guess, are you hoping they trade down might be the better question if they're at 2?
Are they going to have the option to trade down is really it. And that's why I wanted them to get the number 1 pick. I didn't want them to draft a quarterback. I wanted them to be able to set up a Bears-Panthers kind of trade from a couple of years ago where the Bears went and set themselves up for relevance by the trade that they made. And so now the Giants had the opportunity. They don't. I think the Raiders might be in a great spot to do the same if they only have to trade down 2, 3, 4 picks, depending on what they find out through the evaluation process, because not the first quarterback you think of is always the guy that teams fall in love with, right? We only have to go back to this draft I just mentioned with the Bears, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and likely MVP Drake May. May went 3rd. And if the Raiders fall in love with someone who they know, we probably can get one of 2 or 3 guys that we like, but we would really like this guy. Maybe he's not the guy who's consensus on everybody else's board. Then trade down might make the most sense in the long run anyway.
The organization that never understands value in the first round and trading down. But in theory, it sounds nice. They could do it for once.
Okay, but let me make a point to that. Let me make a point to that because this is the first time, week 17 of the 2025 NFL season. You and I started doing a Raiders show in 2017. This is the first time that I have ever seen them have direction for a full week throughout the entire organization. We saw it. We saw them understand we need to lose. I don't care if it's we need to go all the way in and win or we need to go all the way out and lose. We need to lose. And they did it. They sat down Crosby. They sat down Bowers. They essentially punted most of this game with the way they went after it. Every time they got kind of close in this game, they found a personal foul. They jumped offside. They did whatever it had to happen for them to be able to lose this game. So, yes, I would say that the Raiders at least get the idea of, okay, we are tanking these 2 weeks. We understand that we need to rebuild.
It is the first time that I think they understand that they're not good. It's the first time that I think they've shown us as an organization that they're like, oh, it's not about right now or winning as soon as we can. It's actually, oh, we're pretty far away. And they've been closer than this most of the years. They went to the playoffs once, but I've been saying it most years since 2017. The Raiders aren't that close. Like they need to actually try to rebuild, do something different than just push for 9 wins every single year. And we finally saw it. Now, they didn't do a great job last offseason, whether it was trading for Geno Smith, not addressing the offensive line, drafting a running back first, drafting guys in the 2nd and 3rd rounds that I don't know if they weren't good enough or Pete Carroll just hates young players, but weren't good enough or whatever to play. So I don't know if it should be optimistic, but to me, like that was the big takeaway from this week is that it's the first time we've seen it. It's the first time that we have seen the Raiders say, yes, we know we're bad. We know winning this week hurts us. We're actually going to try to do something that helps us in 2026, 7, and 8. I don't know if that makes them better in the offseason, but it absolutely is the first time we've seen that.
So think about what that took, Tyler. When we say we as the Raiders, right? The Raiders organization, we understand what we have to do. What does that really mean? What it really means in the micro, Mark Davis was convinced by the rest of his organization, by the people he hired to run football operations. Mark Davis was convinced it's okay to piss off Max Crosby. in the smallest sense, this is the victory that Raiders fans need to understand. Your owner was willing to make the guy who says, I want to be a Raider for life no matter what else happens, who is consensus one of the best players in the NFL still right now. Mark Davis was willing to make that guy mad by telling him, you're not playing, and then him leaving the facility and getting so mad that he's doing subtweets by putting up him on Instagram shooting baskets in his own home gym to prove that he's healthy enough to be out there. But if Mark Davis is truly bought in on the idea that I can make the guys who are the most loyal to this organization mad, what it means is we get closer to winning as an organization, then that, Raiders fans, is an enormous victory for you.
All right, I missed this. He was playing basketball on Instagram?
He was. He was in his home gym. He was shirtless, dribbling around the gym with his little daughter in the background. He made, I don't know if it's a true half court, but it looked like a half court shot from what they showed on the video, and then fell to the floor in celebration and was mobbed by his dog. And so to me, it looked like a pretty winning Sunday, all in all, for Max Crosby. If you can't be out there trying to keep your team from tanking, you might as well go home and enjoy yourself with your family.
I need one of these home basketball gyms. I don't know why I don't. I need one of these.
You need to make that the only room of your house if that's what's going to happen. Like that. Like, I don't think you're going to be able to afford to do anything other than make it like a giant studio where you just stick a bed in the corner for you and your wife and like one more little bed for Churro, and that's it.
Oh, he's in the bed. Let's not pretend like Churro's
okay. Well, that's a great point.
Yeah. Some things that all I've got is a little mini hoop on a door. I don't even have it up anymore. It's not there because Churro will try to eat the ball if I took a shot at it. So it's a nightmare.
Hey, that's great practice though. Like if you want to say like, how am I going to improve my Nerf skills? Think about trying to dribble around a bulldog. That's fantastic.
So on Crosby, because this I think is the tipping point of the offseason. Do you think he asked for a trade? We've heard Mark Davis say, I'm not trading him. People always ask me, I'm not doing it. Crosby has never said anything other than he wants to be a Raider. I love to bring up the fact that in the past, he has criticized LeBron James for changing teams, and he didn't do it the right way, like Kobe and Michael Jordan, and stay on one team, and that he views himself the same way. Do you think this is the, hey, I'm a competitor, I'm here to win, they told me they didn't want to win, so I don't want to be a part of this culture? Like, is this it? Is this where Crosby finally says, I want out of here? Like, I'm 29, I want to win something. You guys are clearly in a rebuild mode, and you've given me the excuse I can tell myself why it's okay to change teams, in that you made me sit down and say winning's not important right now.
I mean, if I wanted to go full conspiracy theory, I could say this whole thing this week was crafted to give Max Crosby an out, right? Because what did we get out of this story? We got Max Crosby was told he's not playing, and then the rest of what leaked is he's not in the team facility either. Like, made to look mad, right? He probably was. That it tracks with everything else we know about Max Crosby. But to your question, I'm not going to get into the let's try to guess what's in his head, because it's kind of a fool's errand when it comes to figuring out what a guy pushing 30 who is a huge competitor, who loves the franchise, what he ultimately wants. I'll say this much. What he's going to decide is going to mirror what this franchise looks at itself as and what its fans look at itself as. Does the Raider brand matter as much as winning? And that has been a question for a long time. Does being a Raider, does having that as your personality and wanting to be one of the greats all time for the Raiders, does that matter more than winning a championship? I'm not actually saying I think either one is wrong. If Max Crosby makes the decision in his head that he wants to be a Kenny Stabler kind of guy, I mean, I'm using a bad example there, but if he wants to be a Raider for life, the kind of guy who everyone thinks of as a franchise great, and whether he wins, whether he loses, it matters more to him to do it as a Raider, good on him. That's fine. I don't think that a lot of players have that mentality. I think most players would like to win a championship at some point in their lives, and I don't think this Raiders franchise is anywhere close.
Any chance the people that convinced Mark Davis it was okay to lose a game, they also convince him, hey, you should try to trade Max Crosby whether he wants to be traded or not?
No, absolutely
Yeah, I don't
not.
think so
I
either.
don't think. I don't think we're going that far with it, right? I think this whole thing sets up to where Mark Davis will probably do whatever Max Crosby wants him to do. And he was willing to do this in the micro, right? He was willing to say, all right, Max, you know what? You're hurt. We need you to sit down and be ready for next year, whether you like it or not, right? That I think he's willing to do. It's a whole lot different for Mark Davis, whose track record as the owner of the Raiders is that he has two accomplishments. One, getting the stadium in Vegas. Two, Max Crosby. And I don't think he's willing to give up on number two.
Can Fernando Mendoza be 3?
He could. I hope for Raiders fans that he is. I mean, look, we don't want to get too sidetracked from Raiders Giants. I don't think Fernando Mendoza is the quarterback you draft if you're the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders should be drafting for floor right now. I don't think
Yeah.
you. I also don't think you take a Jamarcus Russell swing at this whole thing. But wouldn't you rather project a Lenora Sellers or a Dante Moore than take the floor of Fernando Mendoza? That's what I would be thinking about.
Yeah. And you might have a franchise quarterback, or you might get to draft a new one next year. That'd be a lot of fun.
Fair enough.
If they win 2 games again next season, that's not good at all.
Well, Pete Carroll will be really confused then.
Okay, do you think Pete Carroll's coming back? Because part of me feels like everything we've seen this year, to be fair, he embraced the tanking part, at least with sitting Bowers and Crosby. But everything we've seen this year is like, I don't know why you would bring him back. I don't know what we've seen that was like, oh yeah, he gave you the stability and the competency that you were looking for, because he didn't. And he also didn't play the young players until they were actually eliminated from the playoffs at 2-9 or whatever it was. Like, there's just nothing that he did that I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I'm excited about. But also, is Mark Davis going to pay another coach to go away? Because is he still paying McDaniels? He might be paying 3 coaches right now. Does he want to make that 4? I don't know. I have a hard time trying to guess or even figure out like what Mark Davis would do or what would be the right thing to do. I think it would be the wrong thing to have Carroll stay drafting a quarterback first overall, because how many quarterbacks do we see get drafted first overall and then their coach gets fired after the next? It's like all of them over the last like 6 or 7 years. So I just don't know how Mark Davis is going to view it, given that we've seen a pretty big shift this week compared to what he's been doing the entire time he's been in Vegas as the owner.
This is where I think the Tom Brady effect really comes in. I think Mark Davis put in a situation to say, finally, we are drafting a quarterback, right? Finally, for the first time since Derek Carr, we are taking a real swing in the draft at quarterback. I think that's where he'll lean on Tom Brady. And if Tom Brady tells him, I think Pete Carroll can do this with the quarterback, then I think he gives him another year, because all of the factors you just said line up for Mark Davis to want to say, let's give Pete Carroll another year. How does John Spytek feel? I don't know. I don't know if he believes that Pete Carroll is the right guy to shepherd a young quarterback through. I think if he is, then I need to see a real answer at offensive coordinator after the disaster with Chip Kelly, because the idea should be that you need to have someone to be a quarterback whisperer to come in, because that's not Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's success came with Russell Wilson becoming an established guy. Pete Carroll's a defensive guy mainly. This is not a situation that makes any sense to keep Pete Carroll. However, I'll ask you this back. Who's a better choice right now? Like, do you just want a guy who's going to bring some stability to the organization? Because I'll say this much for Pete Carroll. The Chip Kelly thing didn't work, right? And then we have the Geno Smith sniping from the agent and back and forth, and that was ugly. But other than that, this has not been a season of discord for the Raiders, right? We haven't seen a lot of sniping. We haven't seen a lot of locker room talk. Like, it sounds weird for a 2-win team, but culture-wise, it hasn't been awful.
So I think that's the question that I had as well, is maybe Mark Davis is viewing this just as a show me somebody better. And sure, we'll do it. But if there's nobody better, then I'm not going to pay my 4th head coach to go away. So I think that might be a real way that he looks at it, and might not be the wrong way to look at it too. Like, you hire somebody just to hire a new coach, and then, he's bad too. What are we doing? So but that's one I have a hard time getting a gauge on. Now, I want to ask you, I want to make you guess here. Do you think you can guess my favorite part of Raiders Giants on Sunday?
Ooh, I think, given everything we've talked about, I think it's going to be that the Raiders' lone touchdown went to Tyler Lockett.
No, it happened off the field, technically on the field, but outside the line.
Oh, was it the Jamal Adams, Jameis Winston argument?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so great. We get the gunner on the punt return. There's many fights. Somehow they're so far past the Giants sideline. The Giants players have to run away from the field to get to it. Incredible work. There's a fight, and then like 3 commercial breaks later, they're like, oh, look what else we have. Jamal Adams and Jameis Winston going face to face. And Jamal Adams has a helmet on, so you can't really tell. But it looked a lot like Jamal Adams was just standing there, and Jameis was the only one yelling. I love Jameis Winston so much. Unbelievable. I need that guy in the NFL somewhere all the time. He's incredible.
Let's make one thing clear. The entire best thing about that situation, which I'm sure you've seen the replay, that referee,
yes,
who went flying down the sideline and hopped over the bench. We are athletes, Tyler Bischoff. We are athletes, and we prove it in moments like that. We are dedicated to the job, and we will put our athletic skill on display if it means that the sanctity and integrity of the game is upheld.
So I'm a little disappointed, and I know I made you, we're recording this not too long after the game ended, so maybe a little unfair. You don't know his name?
Oh, I saw his name, yeah, but the best thing that we do as officials is stay anonymous.
Oh, okay.
You don't need to know our names. Like, we're not all Ed Hockley or Joe West out there. Like, you don't necessarily need to know who we are. I want to tell you my favorite part of the Raiders-Giants game today. It was when you could see the full commitment of the organization on display, and that a plan that came to the Raiders in training camp finally paid off. Second quarter, Giants have 4th and inches. Everyone's crowded up to the line. Giants already have a big lead. What happened?
Jumped off sides.
Who jumped off sides?
Who was it? I'm blanking on now who it was.
It was Thomas Booker.
Ah, yes.
You want to know when a plan really comes full circle? Pete Carroll made a mystifying trade during training camp. He traded DeCamarion Richardson, who was looking like a decent corner for this team that does not have any corners. He traded him to the Eagles and got back Thomas Booker. And in week 17, you saw that Pete Carroll's plan came to fruition. You had to wait for Thomas Booker to develop into exactly the player you needed him to be. But in the moment when the Raiders needed him most, when they were this close to getting a 4th down stop against the Giants, Thomas Booker paid off. Pete Carroll's bet on him, this organization's understanding that when it comes time for young players to make the impact you need them to make, you have to put them in the spots to do it. Thomas Booker showed that he can do it. Pete Carroll showed that he can do it. John Spytek showed that the Raiders know what they're doing.
I will have to make a lot of apologies to the Raiders as an organization and Pete Carroll if this was the plan the entire time. If they knew, hey, we're not going to address the offensive line. We're not going to do anything we're not going to be good next year. But Pete, Mark Davis needs to hear that we are going to be good. So go out there and say all you know how to do is win 10 games, and keep saying that. Pete Carroll after this game still said again, I could never see this coming. I never could have happened. Couldn't even be possible in my mind. If they did this all on purpose, phenomenal work. Best organization in football if they did this all on purpose.
I'm telling you, I don't think there's any question about it. I don't think you can look through the rest of this game and come out with any other thought to it. Let me bring up another one for you. Big gainer for the Raiders. I believe it was an Ashton Genty run. They got a 1st down. But what happened before the play? Trey Tucker.
Yeah. In motion.
Illegal shift.
Yeah.
Trey Tucker, illegal shift. He knew, I have to tank in a subtle way. And a subtle tank is not stopping for a full second after someone else had been in motion. How about getting an illegal downfield penalty against Stone Forsythe? Oh no, I'm wandering off into space. I don't know where I am. This is what true tanking is about. It starts at the organizational level, making Brock Bowers and Max Crosby sit down, but then it is about the finer points of execution throughout the game. And the Raiders did it time after time. What happened when it looked like they might get back into the game with a Tyler Lockett touchdown? They fell apart on special teams. They let a Giants cornerback who some people were thinking might get released at some point this year run back a touchdown. What happened when it looked like they might get a stop against the Giants and one more chance in the fourth quarter? Landon Roberts came through like the veteran that he is and committed a personal foul by shoving one of the Giants' offensive linemen. You cannot say that the Raiders were not fully and totally, as a team, committed to making sure that they lost this game in a way that I, as a Giants fan, did not get to enjoy today.
It was a great week for the Raiders, one of the best that they've had in a very, very long time. Now, for anybody that listened to me on the radio, Adam Candee came on with me quite a bit. But I don't think anybody else knows this listening, because I didn't know this. But I got married in 2024, and I made quite a big deal about it on the radio. Got married in a castle in Scotland. I found out this month, Adam Candee also got married in 2024.
I did. Yeah, I got married May 25th of 2024. I enjoyed our text exchange about this, mostly for your wife's commentary as you were finding out details about my life, because not only did you find out about that, you found out about the impending birth of my daughter, who is now here.
What am I supposed to do? I'm going to start texting all of my friends. Are you having a baby soon? Just I'm going to periodically send that to people just to see, just so they tell me.
I'm debating whether to drop one more piece of information on you during this podcast. I'm not 100% sure about it yet, but I'm going to encourage you, Tyler, to after this podcast, I want you to go to my LinkedIn. I want you to see if you can put some pieces together. But I'm not telling you any more than that right now, because I want to make sure you have a reason to bring me back on Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff.
What did you get a referee promotion? I don't even know how those things work.
I'm not sure I got a promotion, and that's not it, by the way. But yeah, there's more.
Okay.
There's more.
I'd see, it's not fair. I don't even know how old you are. Like, you
never will. That's the single greatest running bit from Technically Correct to the press box, like all the way through, is that I give off vibes that say I could be 30 or I could be 60. Like my embrace of analytics says you're 30. The fact that I once brought an envelope with written notes on it to the studio suggests that I'm 60. I embrace it. I'm fully in on the idea that I have an age that cannot be determined.
Did you, because this was one of my wife's theories, did you not mention at any point that you were also getting married in 2024 because of how big of a deal I was making about my wedding?
No, I actually was not trying to allow you the stage, although you deserve it. You deserve to have the stage. And I will say this much. Your wedding featured far more interesting details than mine did. Like I had a lovely experience. We had a great time with our friends and family. There were no owls. There were no swords. It didn't happen in Scotland. Mike Gramala didn't end up stranded on a road somewhere. People weren't being pushed out of ditches on the road. Like, none of those things happened when it came to my wedding. And I just had confidence that yours would deliver that way and make for far better material than mine.
To be clear, Mike Gramala probably did get stranded on the side of a road during your wedding. It just had nothing to do with your wedding. It just happened at the same time. All right. I got to give you the chance. Do you want to ask me Flowood, Mississippi questions?
Well, I want to pull up this article to make sure that I'm quoting it properly, because you had such a reaction to this that I was not understanding. I thought it was pretty cool that in The Athletic, that I believe it was Ken Rosenthal in his column has a subhead that says the prides of Flowood, Mississippi. And let me read exactly what's going on here. The game's consensus number one prospect, Pittsburgh's Connor Griffin, reacted excitedly to a Pirates trade, quote tweeting a post by one of the team's acquisitions, outfielder Jake Mangum. And the quote tweet is from Mangum saying he's excited to go to the Pirates. Connor Griffin says, "Let's go." The rest of it says Griffin, 19, went to the same high school as Mangum, 29, Jackson Preparatory in Flowood, Mississippi, which, of course, those of you who have made the effort to find Tyler here know is his hometown. They trained at the same facility in Flowood during the offseason. I know him really well, Mangum said Saturday. He's a good dude. I could not believe that you were left out of a sports segment about the prides of Flowood, Mississippi, and your response was simply because prep is the worst.
Yeah.
I had no idea you had this kind of beef with a high school in Flowood, Mississippi, more than a full decade after you've been out of high school. What happened here?
All right, so I'm gonna give you details that you'll probably have follow-up questions too. First off, I lived in Flowood, Mississippi. I went to a private school in Mississippi that was in a different county. Now, unlike Las Vegas, the counties are small, so it doesn't take much to go to a different county. But I went to Madison Ridgeland Academy, who is like the biggest private schools in Mississippi are Jackson Academy and Jackson Prep. Madison Ridgeland Academy is like the third wheel of that rivalry.
Like
now,
the NC State of the triangle.
Yes.
Like the NC State of the triangle. Yeah. Okay.
We kick their ass in basketball, though, all the time. Great job there. But, so I don't like either one of them. Prep was the closest to where I lived. Why I didn't go there, I don't know. I didn't make that decision when I was in fourth grade or whatever grade it was my parents sent me there. Probably because it was more expensive would be my guess. But yeah, so I don't like Jackson Prep or Jackson Academy or anybody that went to those schools. They're not good. None of them are good at anything. And so yeah, I don't like them. And there's no reason for me to be happy about anybody who's from Flowood, Mississippi if they went to prep.
So Flowood, Mississippi, a town of a few thousand people, you can't go civic pride in a town that small for having two major league players, including one being the consensus number one prospect in the game. You're still mad at Gardner Minshew for, I don't know, not representing Flowood well enough. I guess I don't understand why you have such antipathy towards so many of the people from your hometown when it doesn't sound like they did anything to you.
They went to the wrong school. That's all it takes. What do you mean?
So this is like a turf war, like yeah. Mississippi prep gangs.
Yeah, even worse. The little it's little brother syndrome. 100% is like my school. Our nickname was the Patriots because apparently when our school started, they borrowed athletic equipment from Jackson Prep, who's also the Patriots. It's unbelievably stupid. So like that's clearly my school's at fault there. But I don't like anything about them. It's not actually. I wasn't 100% correct in my text. Jackson Academy is the worst. Prep is the second worst. Like JA, they're a disaster. Nothing good there at JA. Very happy my senior year of high school. Yeah, we beat them in every single sport. It was great. I didn't play in all of them, obviously, but when we beat them in the baseball state championship, we ran out with a big banner we had made that just had every sport and a little check mark next to it because we beat them. It was great. It was a great moment. But I have two details for you on this. First off, I think it's important that you know all of these schools are called segregation academies because all of these schools were founded around Brown versus Board of Education when it was like, hey, you have to let the black people in your public schools. And so the white people of Mississippi said, well, we're going to make some private schools, and that's where our kids are going to go. So I went to a segregation academy, and I remember learning about this in, I want to say it was 8th or 9th grade, and looking around being like, there still aren't any black people here either. So that's a fun fact for you. Also, I have 3 siblings, older brother, older sister, younger sister. Older brother, older sister graduated from public school. Younger sister did go to private school, but ended up graduating from public school. I'm the only one that graduated from private school of my siblings.
Big question I have. Are the two facts you just gave me intertwined?
No, they
Are
have
they
nothing to do with
related?
each other
Did they
at
feel
all.
like that they had to keep you among the segregation academy children for some reason?
Well, I understand how I just presented that makes me seem even worse.
I'm just checking to see, like, I'm the only one who stuck it out at the segregation academy.
So the funny thing is we moved from Texas to Mississippi when I was in first grade, and all four of us went to the public schools. I think it was 2 weeks in, um, my parents took me and my younger sister out and put us in a private school because of how far behind Mississippi's education was compared to what we were getting in Texas. I don't know why they said, screw the older siblings, they can deal with it. But it was apparently just Tyler knows more than everything they're teaching right now, so we're not going to keep him there because he's going to be stupid if we do. And then at some point, my younger sister just didn't want to go to school there anymore. And they were like, okay, fine, you can go to the public school.
So you went to private school from basically from the time you moved to Mississippi all the way through the end of high school.
Yes.
And you were the only one of your siblings who did that.
Yes.
And can I ask one more question about
You can ask as many as you want.
The private school you went to, did you go to the same school from like first grade through eighth grade?
First, second, and third, I was at one school, and then fourth through it was elementary through high school was all on one campus.
Okay, fair enough. How many black people were there?
My graduating class was 56 people, 0 in my graduating class. I believe from the time I was in fourth grade to graduating, we had one black student for a couple of years in middle school or something like that. The grades around us had 2 or 3 per whatever. And for some reason, our class was 56. Every other grade around us had 100 kids graduate.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what happened there. But yeah, no. Basically, the answer was no, not many at all. And the only ones that were recruited to play sports.
So you showed such signs from an early age that you needed to be segregated from your local population, that your parents made sure that from the time you were a little boy, you were only exposed to one type of people. I think that's the conclusion that I'm going to ultimately draw from this. You've shared so much by sharing so little, but so telling.
I knew you would appreciate those details.
Mm-hmm. I do very much.
I know of anybody that I talked to, you were the one that I knew would like those. I don't know if you're the one I should have told those details to, but you're the one that would appreciate them.
Listen, those will go a long way in the end. In our friendship over time, those will go a long way. There's still not a better detail than you driving a car into your house.
I wasn't in the car. I wasn't driving it.
Okay, but all right, it's like soccer. The last person who touched it gets credit for the goal. So you were the last person to touch the car before it went into the house, so you get credit.
Because I tried to stop it. I was going to pull it back. You've seen the video. I was so close to pulling the car back.
Yeah, I have seen the video. Put it that, yeah.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that is why I don't like Jackson Prep or Jackson Academy. Would have had a more visceral reaction had it been Jackson Academy, because they actually are the worst.
Well, I will make sure that as soon as my little daughter is old enough to learn about Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff, I'll make sure that she knows it is the most segregated podcast in all of sports media.
It is. It might
be. That's not on the Outkick network, to be clear. Yeah, that's not on Outkick. If it's on Outkick, that's sort of by nature. But
listen, yeah. I have the history of somebody that would be on Outkick. Like I went to Ole Miss.
Oh God!
Like I didn't exactly upgrade that much when I went from my high school to my college.
I don't know. I've seen you cheer for Trinidad Chambliss too much to think that you still are holding any grudges there.
What a great quarterback he is. Oh, he's amazing. He's incredible. All right. He's Adam Candee. Adam, always great to talk to you.
Always.
So that's it for Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff. I got one note for you. If you're listening and you're like, why is he not talking about UNLV because Anthony Calandria is going into the transfer portal. Don't worry, I'm not banning myself from talking about UNLV again. I'm going to talk about it tomorrow. Tuesday's show, we're going to have a lot on Calandria and UNLV. The Raiders played a tank game. Like you can't not talk about that if you're me. It's the most important thing, right? And we had to get Adam Candee back on the show for that. So I apologize to anybody who was like, "Oh, I can't wait to hear Tyler talk about Anthony Calandria." Tomorrow's show, we're gonna give it some more room to breathe. Otherwise, it would have just been like 2 minutes in Bischoff's briefs today. Tomorrow's show, we're getting into Anthony Calandria. We're getting into UNLV losing their quarterback after he said, "No, I'm not doing it for the money. I'm coming back, baby. All I need is Dan Mullen in my life." So we're going to get to Calandria and UNLV football on tomorrow's show. Give it, I put it this way, give it the appropriate time on the show and not just shoehorned in after I talk about the Raiders finally doing something competent and one of the best tank jobs that we've seen. So tomorrow, Anthony Calandria. I'm sorry we didn't do it today. We'll do it tomorrow. Thanks everybody for tuning in for today's show. Oh, one more note. Not going to have a show on Thursday or Friday this week. Still questioning if I'm going to do one on Wednesday. So this is going to be a short week of shows thanks to the holiday. I'm not doing a show on Thursday or Friday. We'll see about Wednesday. But Anthony Calandria, UNLV, that is coming up tomorrow. So I appreciate you staying tuned. And I'm doing damn radio teases for you while doing a podcast. It's terrible. I'm sorry.